In this video, we're going to make our very first Java application. We're going to make an application called Hello World. Now, in computing terms, it's been a tradition for the very first program you create in a new language to get the computer to print out a message that simply says Hello World. Nothing more, nothing less. So the idea is just to really show you some real basics of that language. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Create a New Project. This brings up a rather intimidating looking screen, but it isn't as bad as it looks. Now, depending on the edition of IntelliJ that you're running, whether you're running the Ultimate Edition like I am, or whether you're running the Community Edition, you will see there's different options here to the left-hand side. Now, because I'm running the Ultimate Edition, and this is the paid version of IntelliJ, the JetBrains people, the makers of IntelliJ, give you a lot more options. But you don't need to worry about this whether you're running the Ultimate Edition or running the Community Edition. Just make sure you click on Java to the top left hand corner like so. Now you should also have a project SDK showing there, and it should say something like 1.8, maybe a different number, but that's okay, it'll still work. Now if you haven't got one, refer back to the SDK, the Java Development Kit installation video, and I actually went through and showed you how to install a Java Development Kit. Now, if you're sure you've done that, and this is not showing, go back and check out the IntelliJ installation video, because right at the end of that video, I go through and show you how to finish off the setup of the Project SDK, and that involves telling IntelliJ where to find the new Java Development Kit. Again, make sure Java is selected. Leave everything else unselected there. We don't need to click on anything. Click on Next. Now you'll see this option, Create Project from Template. I'm going to leave that unchecked because we want to create a brand new project from scratch. I'm going to click on Next. Next, it's asking you for the project name and also the project location. Project name is self-explanatory. We're going to call that one Hello World. Now I've typed it on the screen with spaces, but I actually don't recommend you type spaces. For a project name, you want to type in whatever it is, and you can use upper and lowercase freely, but don't put any spaces in there. And that's because often, depending on your operating system, you can run into difficulties with spaces in path names. So I suggest you leave that like so. So I'm calling this one Hello World. Typed it correctly this time. And if you click on more settings down the bottom, you get some other options, and it gives you things like the content root, the project format, and the module file location. We don't need to worry about any of that at this stage. We can just stick to the basics, which was the project name Hello World and the project location. I'm going to change this location to another location though, and because this is my first Java application on this computer, you can see I've got a project location, and that's because I've been creating a Java application for another one of my courses. I don't want to put my source code in there. What I want to do is I want to click on this button over here to the right, and I want to navigate to a new folder, and I want to create a new folder that's going to contain all the Java code that we'll be using for this course. So to make it simple, I'm just going to click on Desktop, and I'm going to click on New Folder, and I'm going to type in Java Programs, and click on Create. And that's going to be the folder that I'm going to store all my Java code in. I'm going to click on Choose, and you can see it's now updated, and it's actually updated to point to that path. But what it's done at the moment is it's only given me the name of the main folder. In fact, what I want to do is create a subfolder that contains each project, so that if I've got two projects, they've each got their own folder in Java Programs. So what I'm going to do is click on again to the right here, and I'm going to click on New Folder, and I'm going to type in Hello World. And that's going to be the folder that contains our first application. So you can see now that the project name is Hello World. The location is now users, in my case, dev, desktop, Java Programs, Hello World. So it's got its own folder, and the project name is going to be Hello World that's stored in that folder. Now you may have, if you're running on Windows, you'll see that this folder location will be a little bit different. You probably have something like C:\/ users/ and whatever your username is, and then perhaps a link to the documents folder. You'll just need to navigate to a folder that you'll remember where these files will be, depending on your operating system. But that's where mine are going to be. So I'm now going to click on Finish. So what's happening now is the IntelliJ editor is now creating a folder in that directory, and it's containing the base files that we'll be using for our application. Now before we get started, I just want to point out the tip of the day. This is a little box that comes up every time you first start up IntelliJ, and you can turn these tips off because that's what they are. They're tips for the day, and I suggest you leave it on and actually read some of these because it gives you some really clever shortcuts, and it gives you an overview of some of the features that are included with IntelliJ. Definitely worth your time to read some of these, and you can click on next to go through and read what some of the other tips are. And again, it's just a great way for finding out some of the capabilities that the IntelliJ IDEA product has got to really save you a lot of time when it comes to development. I'm going to click on close, and I'm going to leave the tips on, but if for some reason you didn't want the tips to show, just click on the checkbox. So what we're going to do now is click on this little button down here to the left, which is called on a Mac a disclosure triangle, but in any event you'll click that and it just opens up, as you can see. And I'm going to click here where it says SRC, which is the abbreviation for source, and what that is the location where we'll be putting our Java source code. So I'm going to right click that now. You notice when I click it, I get what is a huge menu of options, and believe it or not, down the track, once you've had a bit of experience with Java, a lot of these will make a lot more sense to you. Right now I can see that's probably overwhelming, but you don't need to memorize anything. The only thing you need to do is click on New and come over here where it says Java Class and click on Java Class. This brings up a little window, and IntelliJ is now saying, what is the name of the class that you want to create? Now don't worry if you don't know what a class is. In later lectures, we're going to be going through in detail and explaining what classes are. For now, it's good for you just to follow along and do what I'm doing. And when we get to the stage of you needing to know more about class, I'm going to go into that in more detail. Let's create one, and we're just going to call it Hello. Okay, and I'm going to click on OK. Now don't be too concerned about the contents that are on the screen. We're going to go through that in detail in future videos. For now, let's just get a basic program up and working in IntelliJ so that we can actually tick the box that says we've created our first Java application and we've actually run it. I'm going to press enter on the end of the first line. I'm going to type public static void. I'm putting spaces between them. Now as you're typing, do make sure you type in exactly the same case with exactly the same spelling as you can see me typing. It's very common for new programmers or people using another programming language to type things in to make typing mistakes, or to type things in a different case. For example, instead of a lowercase p for the start of the word public, if they typed an uppercase P, you'll get a completely different result. In this case, it's highlighted in red, which is saying that there's an error. So do make sure you check your code carefully, that you're typing it in exactly as you see me type it. And if you see anything like this in red, you can just put your mouse over it, and IntelliJ will normally tell you what the problem is. In this case, it's saying cannot resolve symbol public, and that's because the first letter was typed in uppercase. So I'm going to make that lowercase again. So let's finish off our first program. So public static void main with spaces in between, then a regular bracket, the word string with a capital S, and I'm going to put two square brackets. You notice those brackets are a little bit different to the other brackets we've used. And the word args, I'm going to put a brace now. The brace is the same character as the one you see after the word hello. Okay, now we've done that. So now we're going to type system with a capital S, dot, out, dot, print, L. And as I type the L, you notice that IntelliJ come up and said, oh, do you mean print lin, which is an abbreviation for print line. So if you want that and you're happy with that, you just double click that if you want. And you notice how IntelliJ filled out the rest of the line for us, which is great. So what I'm going to do is go back here to these little brackets, and I'm going to type in a double quote. And notice how I typed only one double quote, but IntelliJ added the second one automatically. And that's because IntelliJ is saying quite rightly, well, if you type one double quote, you need to have a second one to make it valid in Java. So it quite conveniently added that for you. So in those double quotes, I'm going to type hello, comma, world, and I'm going to put an exclamation mark after it. So at this point, we're now done with our first Java application. We've created a valid Java application. We know that it's valid because there's no red errors on the screen. We can't see any errors showing up. So the next thing to do is to actually run the application. So how do we actually get it to do something? Because this system.out.println, or println, which is an abbreviation for, is meant to display hello world, the message, somewhere on the computer. Well, it turns out that running it is quite easy. You just need to literally right click. That brings up a menu with a lot of options, but the one you want is run hello.main. So I'm going to click on that. You notice something happened. Something happened down the bottom briefly, and now a little window's appeared, and you can now see that we've actually got a message which says hello world. And it's got process finished with exit code 0. Now we'll be talking more about what that means in a future video, but the bottom line is you've now created and successfully run your first hello world application. Challenge time. How would you go about modifying the output to, instead of putting hello world, to put hello and your name? For example, hello Tim. I'm going to pause the video, go ahead and make that change so that the output becomes hello Tim instead of hello world, or substitute the word Tim for your name. Go for it now, and we'll come back shortly and show you how to do it. Welcome back. So did you get that going okay? Well, it turns out the change is pretty easy. All we really need to do is we need to go into here, and we can go back and just delete it as we would be using a normal word processor. Delete those characters out and type in your name like so. And if you want to, put an exclamation mark. Doing that will actually display the message hello Tim, but to see that message on the screen, again, we need to right click and click on run. And you can see down the bottom of the screen, we've now got hello Tim. So that's it. That's our first very basic Java application. In the next video, I'm going to walk you through some of the basic functions within IntelliJ, just so you understand the various parts of the screen and how to move some of the windows around depending on the amount of screen real estate you've got, and just to help you become a little bit more familiar with IntelliJ. So I'll see you in that next video.